Hey, I just gave Mums the ultimate home business shortcut. The coffee had gone cold again. Another morning, balancing the noise of the house and the quiet question she kept avoiding. Can I really build something of my own? The laptop sat on the kitchen counter, a tab still open from the night before. She'd been researching for weeks, chasing ideas that felt either too complicated or too far out of reach. She wasn't chasing millions, just freedom. The kind that fits between nap times and school pickups. The kind that doesn't require explaining herself to anyone but the mirror. But every article she found seemed written for someone else, someone with more time, more money, more certainty. Part of her still felt guilty for wanting more, as if ambition had to disappear when motherhood began. As if the moment she became mum, everything else about her had to shrink to fit inside that single word. She loved her children fiercely, but she also missed the version of herself who built things, who solved problems, who felt capable beyond the walls of her home. Then one morning something shifted. Not dramatically, just a small crack in the doubt. She'd been scrolling through her phone while her youngest napped and stumbled across something unexpected. A woman, also a mum, talking about how she'd started a business using nothing but her voice and a free AI tool. No fancy equipment, no technical skills, just ideas and consistency. The woman wasn't promising riches or overnight success. She was showing receipts, small wins, gradual growth, mistakes made and lessons learned. And for the first time in months, it didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt possible. She almost gave up. Until one message changed everything. A friend from college reached out, asking if she knew anyone who could help write product descriptions for her small online shop. She almost said no, almost recommended someone else. But instead she paused and thought, what if I tried? What would you have done in her place? She opened a free AI writing tool that night after the kids were asleep. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to ask. Then she typed, "Write a compelling product description for handmade ceramic mugs." Within seconds, words appeared on the screen. Thoughtful, engaging, professional. She tweaked them slightly, added her own voice, and sent them to her friend. The response came back within an hour. "These are perfect. Can you do more?" She stared at that message for a long time. Not because it was life-changing money, it wasn't, but because it was proof. Proof that she could create value. Proof that her ideas still mattered. Proof that she didn't need permission to start small. According to recent studies, small home-based businesses led by women are growing 40% faster than other segments, proof that clarity often beats capital. The barrier to entry has never been lower, especially with artificial intelligence doing the heavy lifting on tasks that used to require expensive software or specialized training. But the idea didn't come from a business book. It came from the mess on her kitchen table. She looked around at her life with fresh eyes. What did she already know? What did people already ask her for help with? What small frustrations had she solved in her own life that others might pay to avoid? The answers started coming faster than she expected. She thought about the meal plans she made every week to save time and money. She thought about the organization systems she'd built to manage chaos. She thought about the way she explained complicated things to her kids in language they could understand. These weren't just survival skills, they were marketable skills. Then came the doubt, the kind that whispers louder than failure. "Who's going to pay you for that? You're not an expert, you're just a mom." The voice was familiar, and it had stopped her before. But this time, something was different. This time, she had a tool that could help her sound as professional as she felt on the inside. She started writing. Short articles about parenting hacks, simple guides on budgeting for busy families, tips for organizing small spaces. She fed her rough ideas into the AI, which helped her refine the structure, improve the flow, and polish the language. Then she added her own stories, her own humor, her own heart. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress, it looks like staying. She posted her first piece on a free blog platform and shared it with a parenting group online. 3 people commented, 1 said it helped, that was enough. She kept going, 1 post a week, then 2. The AI became her co-pilot, brainstorming headlines, generating outlines, suggesting angles she hadn't considered. It wasn't doing the thinking for her. It was amplifying what she already knew, making the execution faster and less intimidating. Within a month, someone asked if she offered consulting calls. Within 2 months, a small brand reached out asking if she'd write content for their website. The payments were modest at first, $50 here, $100 there. But they added up. More importantly, they validated something she'd been afraid to believe, that her perspective had value. She smiled. Not because it was easy, but because it was finally hers. The beauty of AI wasn't that it replaced her. It was that it freed her from the parts that used to drain her energy. She didn't have to spend hours formatting documents or figuring out the perfect way to phrase something. She could focus on what mattered, the ideas, the connection, the authenticity that only she could bring. Other moms started noticing. They asked how she was doing it. She shared everything, the tools, the process, the mindset shifts. Some of them started their own projects. A few teamed up with her. One launched a virtual assistant service using AI to automate scheduling and email management. Another started designing printable planners with AI-generated templates she customized and sold on Etsy. None of them quit their lives or abandoned their responsibilities. They just learned to build around them. The technology didn't demand perfection or pedigree. It just asked for curiosity and consistency. What she discovered wasn't a hack in the cheap sense of the word. It was a genuine shift in accessibility. Tasks that once required hiring professionals or learning complex software were now achievable with simple prompts and a willingness to experiment. Customer service chatbots, social media graphics, email sequences, product mock-ups, video scripts, all within reach of someone working from a kitchen counter between breakfast and bedtime. Maybe success just wasn't meant for someone like her. That thought still surfaced sometimes, especially on hard days when nothing seemed to click. But it was getting quieter, because the evidence was mounting. Not evidence of perfection or viral fame, but evidence of momentum, of capability, of the kind of independence that doesn't scream for attention, but grows steady and strong in the margins of everyday life. She started teaching others what she'd learned, not as an expert, but as a guide. Someone just a few steps ahead, turning back to offer a hand. She created a simple course showing mums how to use AI for freelance writing, content creation, and small business automation. She priced it low because she remembered what it felt like to have more ideas than income. The first sale came from someone in another country, then another, then 10 more. She wasn't getting rich, but she was getting somewhere. Her workspace was still her kitchen counter, but it no longer felt like chaos. It felt like possibility. Her husband noticed the change before she did. Not in the money, though, that helped, but in the way she carried herself, the way she talked about her days, the way she stopped apologizing for wanting things. "You seem lighter," he said one evening as she closed her laptop. She thought about that. Lighter. Not because the load was smaller, but because she was stronger, because she'd proven to herself that she could build something that mattered, even when the world told her to wait, even when she told herself to wait. What helped her most wasn't just the technology. It was realizing she didn't need permission to start small. She tested a few tools before finding what truly worked, and honestly, it changed everything. Things like Canva Pro for quick professional graphics, simple AI writing assistants for content creation, and affordable courses that taught her to think like an entrepreneur without the jargon or gatekeeping. This isn't a promotion, just something that made her path a little lighter. She'll leave the links below if you want to explore them. But the real tool was mindset. The real breakthrough was deciding that her time, her ideas, and her voice were worth investing in, even if the investment was just 30 minutes before dawn or an hour after everyone else fell asleep. The kids started noticing too. Her daughter, 8 years old, asked one morning, "Mommy, what are you always working on?" She could have brushed it off, could have said, "Just some stuff." Instead, she pulled her daughter onto her lap and showed her the screen. "I'm building something," she said, "something that's mine, something that helps other people." Her daughter stared at the words on the page, the colorful images, the comments from strangers saying thank you. "Can I build something too?" "Yes," she said, and meant it. "You absolutely can." That moment mattered more than any paycheck. because it meant her children were watching her become, not just exist. They were learning that creativity doesn't stop when life gets busy, that ambition isn't selfish, that women can be mothers and builders at the same time, without apology or permission. She thought back to the beginning, to the cold coffee and the open tab and the weight of wondering if she was capable of more. She realized now that she'd been asking the wrong question. It wasn't, "Can I do this?" It was, "Will I?" And the answer, quiet but certain, had always been yes. The beauty of this moment in time, this intersection of technology and access, is that it's democratizing opportunity in ways that would have seemed impossible even 5 years ago. AI tools aren't reserved for tech companies or people with coding degrees. They're available to anyone with an internet connection and the courage to try. The barriers that used to exist, expensive software, technical expertise, large teams, startup capital, are dissolving. Not entirely, not for every industry, but enough to matter. Enough to let a mom in suburban nowhere launch a service that reaches clients across continents. Enough to let someone with no design training create professional visuals. Enough to let ideas become income without needing a business degree or a trust fund. This isn't about replacing human creativity. It's about amplifying it, about giving people leverage they didn't have before, about making the leap from "I wish I could" to "I did" just a little bit shorter. She wasn't unique. That was the most liberating realization of all. There were thousands of women doing similar things, quietly building, quietly earning, quietly reclaiming parts of themselves they thought they'd lost. Some were selling digital products, some were offering consulting, some were creating content, some were automating services. Each one had found a way to turn what they knew into what they earned, using tools that cost little or nothing to access. What would you have done in her place? Would you have taken the leap? Would you have let the doubt win? Or would you have found your own version of that kitchen counter moment, where the mess stopped feeling like failure and started feeling like raw material? She kept building. Not every day was a win. Some weeks nothing sold. Some posts got no traction. Some ideas flopped completely. But she'd learned something crucial. Failure only stings when you believe it defines you. When you see it as data, as feedback, as redirection, it loses its power to stop you. The AI helped there too. It made iteration cheap. If a headline didn't work, she could generate 10 more variations in seconds. If a product description felt flat, she could test different tones and angles without starting from scratch. The cost of experimentation dropped to nearly zero, which meant the cost of learning did too. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress. It looks like staying. There were moments she wanted to quit, moments when the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be felt insurmountable. But she stayed. She kept showing up. She kept refining. She kept trusting that small actions repeated consistently would compound into something bigger. And they did. A year in, she looked at her bank account and saw a number she'd once thought impossible. Not life-changing wealth, but life-improving income. Enough to contribute meaningfully to her family's finances. Enough to stop feeling guilty about small purchases. Enough to prove that she could hold her own in the world beyond motherhood, without sacrificing motherhood itself. When she poured her coffee the next morning, it was still hot. Because this time, she wasn't rushing. She was building. She took a sip and opened her laptop, not with dread or doubt, but with curiosity about what might come next. The journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. But the difference between a beginning and a false start is momentum, and she finally had that. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, exhausted, uncertain, waiting for permission that would never come. She wished she could go back and tell her, "You're closer than you think, the tools are already here. The market is already there. The only thing missing is your belief that you deserve a seat at the table." But she couldn't go back. None of us can. We can only move forward, carrying what we've learned, extending a hand to those still standing where we once stood. This is educational and inspirational content, not financial advice. Every journey is different. Every path has its own obstacles and opportunities. But the trend is undeniable. Technology is creating space for people who were previously shut out. Mothers, caregivers, people in rural areas, people without formal training or traditional credentials. AI isn't the answer to everything. It's not a magic wand. It won't build your business for you or guarantee success, but it is a lever. And levers change what's possible for ordinary people with extraordinary determination. Tell us what part of her story resonated with you most and where you're watching from. Your journey might just inspire the next one. Tell us which country or city you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.